Well, hello everyone, and welcome to SPED Homeschool Conversations. This is a weekly broadcast that we do for SPED Homeschool. We are a nonprofit. My name is Peggy Ployer, and I'm the founder and CEO of SPED Homeschool. And we are on a topic this month of family dynamics. And our guest tonight is Anita Gibson. Welcome, Anita. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot of different angles from family dynamics this month, but we're going to talk about unity tonight and how we unify our family. And sometimes that's a little vague and how we do that, but we're going to get into some nitty and gritty about that. And we really want you, our audience that are joining us live, to be part of this conversation. And so definitely bring your comments, your questions. We know family unity is probably on a lot of people's minds since it's the week of Thanksgiving. And if you're listening to the recorded version, maybe you have some things that went on at Thanksgiving that now you're listening to this and going, oh, how could I made that better? Or yeah, maybe we did something different this year and it really worked. And that's so we just want to encourage you. And as Christmas is coming too, this is just a time where we spend more time with family that maybe we haven't seen. But also we want to talk to the younger families too, don't we?
Yes.
And encourage them on maybe how you can get started if you're kind of floundering. What am I doing? I remember those days. So sometimes I even say those now, though.
Right.
So Anita, I would love our audience to get to know you a little bit. So could you tell us a little bit about yourself and just kind of what you're doing now that you're done homeschooling and where your passions lie and why this topic is, because I saw this title on your website and that's what said, yes, that's what we're going to talk about. Because you said, oh, we could talk about anything, but it's like, that is a great topic.
Awesome. Well, I am a coach, a speaker, an educational strategist, and the author of the book Starfinder. But my husband and I homeschooled for over 20 years, from kindergarten through 12th grade. So our children have never have gone to a traditional school environment, and they're actually fairly normal.
Surprising. So are mine.
And
even with diagnoses, I think people would say they're kind of normal.
And we get that all the time. You were homeschooled? Wow, you're not strange.
Right.
I don't know how I should take that.
Right, exactly.
But yes, they are. Our oldest daughter is a foreign service officer. She actually speaks French, Vietnamese, and of course English, and travels the world. Our second daughter is a math and a science teacher in the public school system. She sees 100 students a day and is doing amazing things with them. And she actually is our child who had not special needs because there was nothing technically wrong, but she learned differently and did not learn how to read until maybe until after fourth grade. And so we had to do some special things with her just to help her find her place in the world. And once she found her place, she was able to soar.
Oh, that's neat.
And then our son is he is a photographer and videographer. He has his own business, and he actually works at a Christian school. And he teaches actually videography and photography in our homeschool group.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, so those are our three children. My husband and I, we've been married for over 36 years, and we actually still like each other.
That's an important thing.
In fact, I tell people we've gotten to the sweet days. We understand each other. We found out what's really important, what matters, especially as we're talking about this unity in the family. Those kinds of things, really understanding what's important, learning what battles to fight, can create much unity in a family.
That's so true. Yes. I'm excited to dive into that a little bit later too.
Yeah. And so I am an administrator for a couple of homeschool programs. One of our programs has about 90 students, and we see them twice a week, and we help them with their core subjects. We have tutors that deliver content, help with homework. We do parent trainings. I just have a passion. I remember back in the 80s starting to homeschool, how lonely it was, how
Mm,
difficult it was.
yes.
It was almost illegal.
Right. Yeah. Back that long ago, it definitely
Yeah,
was.
it had
Hmm.
just shifted from being illegal, and I just remember how people looked at us like we were just so crazy, and how how foolish, and we were going to ruin our kids. And now that I'm done, I want to reach back and just
Yeah.
give some support to let people know that you can do this, you can do it well. um, you
Right.
know, to listen to what God is saying and just go with that and stop worrying about what other people are saying. Uh, because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, God knows what your child needs.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so true. That, yeah, sometimes I just had no idea. And yet it did turn out well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Surprisingly, despite me,
Okay.
most of the time. Yes. Well,
Yeah, I
that's
actually
awesome.
say to parents, when you think about the fact that God knows every one of our faults, and He
Hmm.
still gave us that child.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
what we are and what we aren't must be
Hmm.
enough with Him to accomplish
Right.
exactly what He needs to get done.
Hmm. Yeah, I found myself asking forgiveness from my kids a lot. And
Mm,
but I think that unifies us though. Because I
absolutely.
remember growing up and thinking, my parents, they just, they must have it all together because they never, talk about any of their faults.
Yes.
And of course, then as a teenager, you realize they have a lot of faults, as most teenagers do. But
Yes.
I think I kind of nipped it in the bud by exposing my faults when my kids were younger. Do you want to talk a little bit about just transparency and
Hmm.
the
That's
importance of
good.
that in unity?
So if you want your child to really hear you, um, they have to trust you,
Oh,
and
yes.
they have to respect you.
Hmm.
And a part of the respect, we mix it up. We think that, when we were brought up, it was respect was do as I say, and not as I do, or don't talk back.
Right.
But, really respect is about honoring them, recognizing that you honor them,
Mm.
and that you're honest about your own stuff. So, one of the things we used to do was we would sit around, maybe on a Sunday after church, and we would actually tell the truth about our stuff. We
Hmm.
wouldn't get too deep, but
Right.
we wanted the kids to know, because sometimes they're looking at one child and saying, they're so bad, they're always lying, and they put
You always
one.
see the speck in somebody else's eye instead of the log in yours, right?
Exactly. And somehow what they did was worse than what they did. And, so one day we kind of sat everybody around. We said, now look, everybody in this room knows what each other's faults are, including
Right.
mommy and daddy. So we're not going to play games like we don't have faults. But for some reason, God has called us to be the parents, even with our faults, to help raise you up. But we're not going to walk around and pretend like we don't have them. So, Ricky, what's your fault? He said, he lied. He had struggled with lying. And Lauren, what's your fault? She was very proud. And
Mm.
Danielle, what's your fault? She was my Eeyore. The sky is falling. We're gonna
I have
all
one of those.
die.
Yes.
About everything.
Right. There's no joy there.
No. Oh, and so they came around to dad, and he shared his fault, and I was a very angry mom as a young mom, and they knew that. And
Oh
so
yeah.
like you said, I spent a lot of time apologizing, but when I was able to say, and no longer say, I wouldn't have shouted at you if you had just,
Right.
but was able to say, I am so sorry. You know,
Mm-hmm.
what I did was wrong. Um, you belong to God, and I need to do better at the way that I treat you. And I'm not even going to say sorry until I'm prepared to not do this again.
Mm.
Because if I keep saying it over and over, it will soon have no meaning.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and the same happens with our kids and their relationships with each other too, doesn't it?
Exactly. And so you just have to keep working with them, reminding we're all in the same boat, but we
Mhm.
have a loving God. Just as we need forgiveness from him, then we have to be willing to give it. So I
Yeah.
think the unity comes from taking the word out of that Bible and allowing it to come to life in how we
Mm.
interact with each other.
Yeah, yeah. Natalie says hi to both of us.
Hey,
We both know
Natalie.
Natalie.
Yes.
Glad to see you here. And she said, yes, so true.
Awesome.
Yeah, I agree so much with that. I had anger issues too as a parent. Actually, I just wrote a book called Be Angry and Train Your Kids because it
Whoa.
was a huge growing place for me
Mm.
and lots of needs of forgiveness. We actually did re-honor jobs in our house to restore the honor that was lost when
That's
somebody did
good.
something against another family member. And that was a turning point because I then was re-honoring my kids when I hurt them too, and
That's
not
right.
just them doing things for me. And they saw that sin creates a barrier, this
Yes.
divide
Yes.
that we have to work back to restore. Just saying I'm sorry or
Yep.
forgive me only goes so far.
Yes. It does. And that's why I said, earlier that I had, before I could even say I was sorry, I really had to make sure I was in a place that I was really ready to do away with whatever this thing was, and
Yeah.
if it was anger, to be willing to, to put that anger to the side. Because one of the things God really showed me was the moment you raise your voice, you have just brought all of the attention about whatever that thing was you were trying to get to their heart on. You've just brought all the attention to you. And now
Oh,
in their brain, they can say, oh, mommy, she's so mean and this is not fair. And I didn't do anything. You know how they always say that. What did I do? And
right. Because all of a sudden, the bigger elephant in the room is what you did versus
exactly. So
them.
they never have to deal with their own heart issues. They never have to go before the Lord and see, when we move ourselves out of the way, then they have to do business with the Holy Spirit about whatever it was that we were
Mhm.
trying to work on. So I learned my
So true.
voice must stay low. My intention, the anger has to come out of it so that the focus stays on them and what their heart needs to grow in, what
Oh,
they need to ask forgiveness for.
mm, yeah, love that. Uh, yeah, I can't even add to that. That is so good. And
Amen.
we don't think about it from that perspective though, because we're so in the moment. But I think if we do step back and look at every instance where we've allowed just whatever is brewing in us to take over, that's exactly what happens every time. And we're so deceived, we don't even see that
Mm.
until we have somebody to speak truth into our life, like you.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember one day when God really caught my attention, I was so angry at my 2-year-old. She was
Mm,
just acting up and doing something. And I remember I picked her up and I kind of threw her into a chair, like a fluffy chair. But I mean, I
mm,
put my hands on her in anger. And immediately I heard the Lord say, you don't have the right to do that.
mm. Ooh, that's
She,
convicting.
she doesn't belong to you.
Hmm.
I need you to fix that right now. And I
Yeah.
had to go over to that little girl and get on my knees and say, would you please forgive mommy?
Hmm.
God just told me that I should not treat you like that. And I want to tell you today, I promise I will never do that again. And of course, children are so forgiving. And she
Oh, they
hugged me. She gave me. We had this moment. And as we moved on, God took that angry mama, and He actually used it for that little girl to actually understand the peace that I began to be able to walk in. She had an
are.
appreciation for this peaceful mama that maybe another child would not have. Not to excuse my behavior, but God took it and redeemed it by
Mm-hmm.
giving her a greater appreciation for this mom that was beginning to learn how to be patient, who was learning how to be at peace. Because really, anger is really about fear, feeling
It
out of
is.
control,
It's
you
fear
know?
that they're not gonna do the right things eventually. That this is gonna be their habit, their behavior for the
Yes,
rest of their lives. I mean, we
yes.
over exaggerate it and think of it in that terms, and that's when you're right. It just
Yes.
takes over.
Or even fear within ourselves that I can't control this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I raise my voice, or I do something strong because for me to feel okay, I got to bring
Right.
this back into order. It's not even about the child. And
Right.
finally, and it was like
Exactly.
when I did that, the Lord was saying to me, He's like, now wait a minute, she's 2. Who should be having the temper tantrum here, her or you?
Exactly.
It's like, whoa, that's a thought. He's like, you shouldn't be having, she should be having the temper tantrum, not you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we have to become, when you talk about unifying, one of the
Mm-hmm.
first things we have to become is unified with ourselves and God.
Yeah.
Before we can talk about becoming unified with someone else, we have to make
Mm-hmm.
peace with God about the stuff He's talking to us about, because He's talking.
Oh
And
yeah.
if, and
Yeah.
for those who are listening right now, and you know exactly what He's saying,
Mm.
but we've been making
Yeah. It's that thing that
excuses.
comes to mind first.
Exactly, making excuses. Oh, it's their fault if they didn't, blah blah blah. And the Holy Spirit just quietly just keeps talking to us about whatever
Mm.
that thing is, because we're praying, oh God, please help my kids be obedient, please help them,
Uh-huh.
and He's saying, well, are you?
Right.
And how can you expect them to be something that you are not?
Because you're leading and they're watching. Exactly.
More is caught than taught.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Oh.
when we unify ourselves and we get on this journey of becoming emotionally and spiritually mature,
Mm-hmm.
we begin to look at ourselves in a different way. And we deal with what we need to with our children, but as we deal with our stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, having a honest conversation tonight, when we decide to deal with our stuff, then
Yeah.
God begins to do some amazing things in our family. He can restore
Mm-hmm.
things. There's a scripture that says He restores the years that the locust has eaten. God,
Yes.
he could do amazing things. He's actually waiting. We're waiting for Him to fix them. And he's
Right.
okay.
He's got a different
He's
agenda.
he's like, if you would just work on you, I
Right.
can take care of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, a lot of times it's more evident when we've struggled for a long time and we now have older children or teenagers and
Hmm.
we fought that battle for so long. It's about them. It's about them. And we get to this breaking point where, it's either we are going to disconnect from that child completely, and you see it happen so much because parents push their kids to the point where there's no relationship anymore,
Yes.
or we have to give in and
Yes.
say, I have to let go, I have to let God do this and
Yes.
start changing me. And that just came to mind when you were talking about this, because I think um, that's when parents, we see them struggle so much at that age when the kids are older. But there is the ability to change that, isn't there?
Absolutely. Again, especially as they become teenagers, we have to become wise in how we interact. We have to be, was it wise as serpents and harmless as doves? You know,
Exactly.
we have to have
Mhm.
strategies for how to interact with these extremely complex children who are so impacted by so many things outside of us. And
Yes.
so, coming back to this unity thing, that's why
Mhm.
it's important to create these family traditions, to have
Yes.
these things that will stand against what the world is pushing. And
Mhm.
you do it very subtly. You start when they're young. Like Thanksgiving was a time when we loved this place called Lancaster. It's in Pennsylvania, and it's Amish country.
Uh-huh.
And so even when they were we loved farms, and we always wanted to live on one, and we ended up raising them in a townhouse for 27 years.
Oh, wow.
So our way of, dreaming and having that farm experience was to go stay with Mennonites at after Thanksgiving. And we would
Mhm.
go stay on a Mennonite farm, and they would get to connect with the animals out there and feed help with the milking cows, and they had cats.
Mhm.
And it was just an amazing time to connect. And we did it, like I said, we started when they were little. Well, when they became teenagers, I thought maybe, okay, we don't want to do this anymore. And it was
Right.
almost Thanksgiving time, and they were like, well, hey, aren't we going to Lancaster? Well, it gets worse than that. They get grown.
Oh, and they still wanna go?
Did you make the plans, Mommy? Are we going to Lancaster?
So
I'm like,
funny.
are you kidding me? They're like, will be a tradition that we have for the rest of our lives. It
Mm,
went right, it carried right over those rough, patchy teenage years. No, we weren't, every day wasn't hunky dory, and some days
mhm,
I had my fingers crossed. Yes, I did.
right.
Like, God, please make this, turn out right. Some days
Mhm,
I wept. I was terrified. I
mm.
did not know what decisions they were going to make,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh,
But
yeah.
but working on the maturity of for huh?
I have adult children too. It gets harder. It's not easier.
Yeah, because it's now even less out of your control. They don't live in
You
your
don't have,
house. They're making their own decisions. If God had told us that we would be parents forever, maybe we wouldn't have signed up.
yeah. I have a friend who's single, and she said, "Do you think it's really bad that I'm single and I don't have any kids?" And I'm like,
No,
no.
no,
Enjoy your singleness. Paul said that in the Bible.
that's right.
So
Yeah,
there's a,
so
but if we're called, God has a
exactly.
work to do in us through
He
our children.
does. He
And I
does.
think that's the point that, we've been talking about.
Yes.
And that unity comes in the facets of not always all the pretty stuff.
That's right. That's right. I know our son was he just thought we had ruined him, uh, homeschooling him, and he was quite adamant about that. But we just told him, hey, we're not perfect, so if we're doing the wrong thing, please pray for us, and just
Yeah, I love that.
yeah, please just pray for us that God would give us wisdom, because we really do want to do what He wants. And if this
Mhm.
is not the best thing for you, then we're open to doing something else. And so that never happened. And he went all the way through. And I remember about 6 months after he graduated, he came back home. He moved out to live with 6 other guys, which was an experience in itself.
It's an experience, I'm
Uh,
sure.
it didn't take him but 6 months to,
Mm,
to come. He didn't come back home, but he came to visit, and he said, I have to apologize. He
mm,
said, I am so sorry for how foolish I was. Um, I
wow.
realize now, if you guys had not homeschooled me, I probably would have hurt someone, because he was a black belt in karate and a very cool, chill kind of guy, but the kind that
Mhm.
attracts people that would want to say, can I beat him? Can I beat him? Because, we found out that they were having fights like in the neighborhood. The guys would be trying to beat him
Oh
up because
boy.
they knew he was a black belt, and he was like taking them down like, trees. Um, those stories you don't find out until after they're grown.
Oh, yes, exactly.
But
Yeah.
he was able to come back and see the value of of what we had done, but we had to weather that season when he thought we had not made the right decision.
Right.
And I see so many parents who are like, but they want to go back to school. But what did
Oh,
God
that's
tell you? What did
mm-hmm.
God tell you? So, I say to parents, so if it's 30 degrees outside and you're going somewhere and your child says, but I don't want to wear my coat. What did you say to them? Well,
Right.
he didn't want to wear his coat, so we're out here in 30-degree weather because he didn't want to. No,
Mhm.
you say, go put that coat on,
Right.
because as a parent, you know what's best. And so
Exactly.
that's
And I always tell my children the worst scenario. If the car broke down, you'll be standing outside without a
oh,
coat.
how about that?
Well, having grown up in Minnesota, it would be 10 below, and leaving without the coat was not an option. So, yes.
Yes. So so it's those kinds of lessons that if you're working on that, if you're working on your own stuff, by the time you get to those teenage years, um, it's easier for you to focus on their stuff because you're not working on your stuff and their stuff. Because when you're still working on your stuff, you're actually bumping into their stuff, and you're creating a bigger issue, a bigger mess than you necessarily would have had if you'd done the work earlier.
Right.
However, if you end up in that place, God's still there.
He is, and he will redeem whatever it is, whenever it is. And he knows when
Yes,
you're going to get around to dealing with it.
that's right.
When your eyes are going to be open, and
Yes,
yeah. And
yes,
we have to just rest in that
that's
and
right.
not keep bringing it up. Why? Because I remember the story I share in my book about the anger issue that I had. And, we had a pastor that homeschooled as well. And all of his little children would follow him like the duckling followed the duck. I always went, and then there's mine beating on each other as we're walking. And I'm going, why me? And yet, because my kids, they just have this thing about them. And so but a rainstorm came. Both of our families had been together, and the dad had gone out to change the baby's diaper, and mom wasn't there. So I had the two of the boys, and my boys were there, and this torrential rainstorm came, like
Mm,
none that we saw at that time. And here's my two pastors' kids at a loss. Their dad was gone. They didn't know what to do because they always were looking to him to
wow.
guide them. Which is a wonderful thing. But then here's my boys directing traffic. Hey, you get over here. And it was like God opened my eyes. Your kids
Yes,
are tough. Yes, they've been through
yes,
a lot, your anger
yes,
issue,
yes,
but they're tough for a reason.
yes,
And
yes.
I'm preparing them for some life
That's
different
right.
than
That's
this
right.
was. And so, we always have to look
Yes,
at God's plans for them, not
yes,
just
yes.
where ours are. So I love that.
Yeah, because the truth of the matter is, because God knows the good stuff and the bad stuff, He literally gave that child to us because even our brokenness is a part of their experience that they
Mhm.
need to become what it is God has for them to become. So for
Yeah,
us to want to be like someone else, we won't even if we became that, it won't be what's needed for that child for their future.
exactly.
The good,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
bad, and the ugly.
hmm Yeah, I think we try to duplicate what other families look like instead of just being who we are.
Exactly.
And that truly is where we're unified.
Yes. Yes, it
I love
is.
that because we're a unique family.
That's
And
right.
why would we want to be like anyone else?
Yeah, because the assignment that God has for our family, if we are not unique in that, it doesn't get accomplished.
So true. Yeah. That's the bigger picture. I love
That's the
that.
bigger picture.
Mm, Definitely. Well, we're going to take a break quick
Okay.
to hear from our sponsor. And I think I even forgot to mention them at the beginning. The reason for is sponsoring this broadcast, and we thank them for that. So I'm going to let Anita take a quick break while we hear from our sponsor. And then when we come back, we're going to continue with this topic. And we'd love for you to have some questions. If you want to add questions or comments in the feed, even while I'm doing um, the ad, and then we can come back to those right away. But we would love for you to be part of our conversation as we move this on, and we're just kind of taking it wherever it goes. So so feel free to give us some tangents if you have some unity family questions that you want to bring into this conversation. So all right. So I'll see you in a little while, Anita. And we just want to thank A Reason For It. I'm going to see if I can get this correct. No, there we go. A Reason For It is actually sponsoring all of our broadcasts for November and December, and I want to thank them for that. But we're going to talk tonight a little bit about their program, A Reason For Handwriting. And so parents know that screens and electronic devices are everywhere. So even so, writing legibly and reading others' handwriting does remain a crucial life skill, one that A Reason For Handwriting can help your child master. The program provides instruction in correct letter formation, consistent daily practice to help children learn to write fluently, and their exclusive border sheets are suitable for display at home or even giving to others, which is really cool, and encourage kids to use their best penmanship. Most importantly, the weekly scripture verse is in every lesson and equips them with essential knowledge of God's word and helps them build a lifelong biblical worldview. Visit areasonfor.com to download a sample lesson and to learn more. So definitely check out their website at areasonfor.com, and you can find all those things and more. So I want to thank you, Reason For your support, as well as just sponsoring our broadcast these months. And so I'm going to bring Anita back, and thank you for being part of this conversation, everyone that is joining us live, and also for you that are listening on our podcast, as well as watching on our YouTube channel. So you can find past episodes, of course, on those places as well. So we have a lot of people that love our podcast. So it's a good way to get in all these great conversations. I learn so much every week, and I just love it because the topics take so many different twists and turns. But I love where this is going, though. And I know we were going to dive into some other topics too, but just make sure if you're watching live and you do have something you want us to talk about, we are more than happy to cover that as well. So, so Anita, when we talk about family unity, and I guess, coming off of where we were talking before, we have goals of kind of what we want for our family to look like, to be like, and as we were just finishing the discussion, talk about, well, maybe they don't need to look and be like other people. But then how do we frame what they should look like and maybe start building some good habits around creating unity in our family?
Well, one of the things I talked about earlier was how we sat around the table and actually shared each of our struggles, and we prayed for each other in those
Mm-hmm.
areas. That was really strengthening for our kids to be able to see, wow, mommy and daddy acknowledge that they're struggling and with them things as well. And so as we're correcting you, we also need you guys, to be praying for us, that God would give us wisdom, and and even you can share things as long as you're respectful with us when you feel like you're not being treated in a way that is fair, and those kind of things. So we taught them how do we communicate with each other. um, that was freeing for them. We had little kinds of things that we would do, like we didn't have cable, and I'm not espousing this for anybody else. This was, remember, we just talked about the uniqueness of each family, right?
Exactly.
but we had some issues with screens back then, and we
Mm,
knew it. And so one
right.
of the things we decided to do was to not have cable, and we only had one TV,
Hmm.
and it was in a public place in the house. But what it did was we had to share uh, you know, what we're going to watch. You kind of had to put like a schedule together, and okay,
Right.
daddy's show is at this time and mom's show it, because we did not have a TV in our bedroom. We
Mhm.
decided that, okay, here's another way to unify. Whatever we ask the kids to do, then we're going to do it too.
Right.
And so, we would have our little schedule for these are the shows. And I remember one time, the TV was, I think it was in the basement at that time. And I remember the kids yelled upstairs and said, "Mommy, Daddy's trying to make us watch." It was like the little old house, or it's like a show uh, where they do
This
like,
old house.
this old, Daddy's making us watch this old
Oh,
and
funny.
so yeah, so because it was only one TV.
Right,
But
exactly.
surprisingly enough, it was a unifier, because then something that maybe you wouldn't have normally watched, you find yourself sitting there with that person enjoying
Yeah.
something that they like to watch. And now our
Yeah.
son, he knows all the musicals. Oh, I hope no one he's not on this, or no one, puts it out there. But here this African American boy knows, he sat there singing with his sisters, Sound of Music, and
Oh,
oh,
that's
they
great.
love West Side Story, and because he's the baby, so whatever they
Mhm.
watched, he watched too. But that was one of the ways, something that simple,
Right.
that created a level of unity for us.
Mhm. Yeah, my husband knows I can't sit down. And so I have a really hard time just taking time to even watch TV. Normally,
Okay.
I watch it's on my phone while I'm in the tub, and it ends up being my biblical theology class, which nobody wants to but so he's mandated an hour before bed that we have family TV time. And so we've
Okay.
actually made it through an entire Star Trek series. And
Ooh, I love Star
now we're
Trek.
on the site. And our kids are sitting with us. And so we have this like family hour TV time where everybody sits
Yeah.
down and watches TV together. And it's quite fun.
Hmm.
And makes me sit down and we
Yes.
all get together and share, yeah, a laugh,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah. And it creates commonality, when you're
uh,
like you said, you're sitting there laughing about something, or something will come up and they'll, but you remember so and so, or that reminds
right.
me of, it creates these connections,
Mhm.
that we have, that we carry throughout our lives. For my kids, when they were still as adults asking us about going back to Amish country, um,
Mm.
that was, and they're telling me these stories about this and that. I don't remember one of them.
Really?
I don't remember all these stuff they're telling us that we did, these trips. And
Mm.
we would do field trips on the weekends so dad could go.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
we live in the Washington, D.C. area. So when they were little, we were always downtown in all the museums that were free.
Right.
And now that they're grown and they're sitting and I'm sitting there, maybe it's Thanksgiving, and they're sitting there and they're talking. Do you remember when we did this? And do you remember when mommy took us over here? And I'm sitting here going, I remember none of it. But making those memories, it meant
Mm,
something to them.
right.
That here they are, adults, and we've done so many of these kinds of things. I'm just trying to be obedient and try to help make these connections, but it has
Mm,
created a life for them that when they look back, they honestly can say, we had a wonderful childhood,
right.
and mean
Yeah.
it. That's
And it's amazing what our kids remember and what they forget. And I think it's by God's grace.
yes.
They remember so many good things,
That is
and
so
so
true.
few of the things that they remember, really are the things that you cringed about and went, or worried so much you'd ruin them that they would remember. So yes,
Yes.
definitely. It's just keep making more good memories and working
Yes.
on it. It really does
Yes.
pay off. I
It
mean,
does.
just to, have my oldest home from college after, last night. And tonight was our first family dinner. And for everybody to just continue sitting around the table and talking, it
Yes.
just brings so much joy to you to realize these relationships are so tight in our family. And
Yes.
truly,
Yes.
schooling is one of those things that bonds
It does.
us on that. Do you want to talk a little bit just about the dynamic of homeschooling, especially if we have viewers that are maybe this time of year? I remember being a consultant. There's a lot of people on the fence going, do I put my kids even back in school after the holiday
Yes.
season or we start homeschooling? And so what would you have to say to them about, if they're really feeling maybe I should do this? And how is it going to benefit our family? Even though
Wow.
I think I could. I know there's a lot of moms out there going, oh, I just don't know. Or I'm not patient.
Oh, how often do
Yeah.
we hear that one?
Right. Well, go back
Yeah.
to the beginning of the recording when we were both talking about our anger issues, and you'll you'll feel good about it.
Who's patient? I mean, really. Um, those are all the wrong questions, or those are all the wrong things to bring up. You
You're
know,
right.
the most important thing to ask is, God, is this what you're calling me to do?
Mm,
I can even say, no, I don't want to do it. But let's be honest about it. Why does it keep tugging on my heart? Why do I have to keep stuffing it down? Why do I put them in school another year and then I'm like, I should have homeschooled? There's a
yeah.
reason why it keeps popping up. And is it terrifying? Absolutely, it is. But
Yeah.
it's almost supposed to be that way because you're taking your child's education into your hands, which technically you really have had all the time.
Oh, yes. So true.
You
I
know,
agree.
you're the first
Hmm.
one. You're the first one that taught them everything that they know, and we just kind of pass it off for someone else just for a little while. But the truth of the matter is, when they go to the school and they come back home, who's helping them with the multiplication facts? Who's up till 1 o'clock working on the science fair project that we waited to the last minute to do? Okay,
Exactly.
we
Yep.
everybody homeschools. Let's be real.
Uh,
So now what you're deciding is, instead of at 10 o'clock at night with all these tears and frustration trying to get done this homework that I don't understand, with maybe without a book because everything's online, I can actually decide that we're going to do this work at a time when everybody's sane, maybe like more like 10 in the morning instead of 10 at night. That's such a hard
oh,
decision.
yes. It's really not.
In fact, the same amount of time for some children that you're spending trying to get their homework done, 2, 3 hours in the evening, you can, that's what you need to get the homeschool done.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's so true.
And, and then
Exactly.
and then the next thing is, who cares about them more than you do?
Hmm.
Nobody.
Yeah.
And then the next thing is, why do all the teenagers all over the world look the same?
Hmm. That's a very good question.
Africa, China, South America, all the teenagers, they dress the same. They listen to the same types of music. They have the same moves. Why is that? Because the world has become the parent.
Yeah. So true.
And so you're fighting against all this media that they have access to, and that phone that you gave them, and that
Mm,
laptop that they have. And then you send them to a school where they're spending 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, and I don't bash people that have to send their kids to school because everybody can't homeschool. But
yes.
you said it was tugging on their heart. So that's the ones I'm talking to. The
Yep.
people that
Uh-huh.
it's tugging on your heart. So, we're wondering, the neighbors used to say and talk the same talk we talk. And, in our culture, back in the day when I was coming up, if you were cutting up out in the street, that neighbor would correct you. They would call your mother, or they might give you a spanking themselves.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Okay. Nowadays, we don't, we live in these gated, or these housing communities where we don't even see the people anymore. They roll into their garage, their
Mm,
car into their garage, and I don't even know what my neighbor looks like.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
can't trust my neighbor, so that's gone. The school
Mm,
doesn't is not necessarily going along with what I believe, so that's gone. The environment, the economy, the culture doesn't believe isn't saying the same thing I believe, so that's gone. I don't live
mm,
near my family anymore. They're here there, so now that's gone. So that's four supports of people that were all saying the same thing that were helping us raise these children. So now it's just us against all of this world,
mm.
and you don't want to homeschool? Homeschooling is the place that naturally brings you back into a level of connectivity and discipleship with your
Mm.
child that nothing else can accomplish. That is, if you're working on being spiritually and emotionally mature yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if all you're trying to do, and going in with the wrong intentions, which often helps or happens in our community, especially because I hear so many parents on the other end of the phone. How do I fix my child? How do I catch them up so that I can send them back? And I'm
Exactly.
like, this is not the point.
Exactly.
We got to focus on why are you being called? There's a bigger picture here than just getting your kid to this average point to
That's
then
right.
push them, funnel them back into what really got them off track in the first place to
Exactly.
where they should be going.
Yes. And does it cost us something? Yes, it absolutely does.
Oh,
What's
absolutely.
that scripture? It's in Luke. It says, if a man would come after me, let him take up his cross daily. Let him, it talks about taking up his cross, denying himself. Oh, deny himself, take up the cross daily, and follow me.
Hmm.
So, the word, this is word in our culture that nobody wants to talk about anymore. It's called suffering.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
We
Hmm.
run from it like the plague.
Mm.
But there is beauty in suffering when it's the suffering that God has called into our lives, because that cross that he's
Mm.
asking us to bear, there's purpose in it.
There's is, and you talk to so many parents. And I was on with my team last night. We had our monthly team meeting, and we were talking about this actual subject and just how our lives have changed for the better because of
Yes,
what our kids have taken us through. And
absolutely.
yes, I set aside being a CEO when I was 27 to stay home with my kids,
Wow.
or a VP. And well, now I'm a CEO. But at 27, I set aside that VP position, said, no, I'm being
Wow.
called to stay home with my kids. And I had no idea what that was going to take me through. Um, and and it was heart wrenching because I
Yes.
thought I was what my job was. And I realized that no, God wanted me to understand who I was in Him.
Yes.
And I have found a more beautiful me.
Yes.
That
Yes.
and then I want to encourage moms out there and dads that there is something more beautiful of you when you devote your life to being a parent and your
Yes.
kids, your family first.
It's the opposite of the way the world thinks of it. Like when I first started this journey, I thought it was I would refer to my homeschooling experience as a sacrifice. Oh, it's a sacrifice that I'm willing to make. But when I finished, I realized it wasn't a sacrifice. It was a
Oh.
privilege. It was a privilege
Mm-hmm.
because, like you said, I became a better person, but God trusted me with, this crazy idea, with people looking at me and my family going, are you going to do what? What about your
Right,
government,
exactly.
benefits? Like, you have
Oh.
lost your mind. And to be able to, to bear up under all of that, uh, you know, not because, like you said, we actually know or knew what we were going to experience. It's just like getting married. It's like you can go to all the counseling in the world, and it's good, and you will definitely be benefited by that in some ways. But until you get married, you do not understand what being married is.
Right, exactly.
You
It's yeah,
can't.
the 24/7 type of thing, it's just like you can't leave.
Exactly.
Parenting, you get handed this child and you're like, "Oh, now what?"
Okay. So what it's,
Yeah,
and so raising children is that same thing. It's these places of suffering where God gets the me out of us. Because,
yes.
when I first got married, everything was about me. I didn't
Mm,
realize it at the time, but many of the
yeah,
struggles were about me, about
mhm,
my own self focus, about my need to have this and my need to have that and my need to be that. And as
right.
I began to recognize I needed to get the me out of the equation, I could
Mhm,
begin to see a bigger picture that even in the suffering,
yeah,
even in the heartache, God was using it to draw me to Himself. Because the
mm,
reality was He was really the only thing I needed.
right. Yes, exactly, and He
Not
uses so many good things that are
yes,
so hard in our lives to tell us that.
not obedient children, not a husband that does everything I think he should. None of that.
Mhm,
Not a great job. The only thing I needed was Him.
mhm,
And the more I allowed that to resonate into my life, to actually sit in the suffering, to
mm,
receive the thing that I wish was different. Because if there's anything in your life right now that you think it will be
that.
better
Sure.
if it's
Mhm,
if it was, your life will be better if that was gone, then you've got some more working to do, because
mm,
that's giving power to whatever that thing is. See, I'm going to choose to be happy right now in the moment, whatever that means. Right now,
mhm.
with a daughter who has asthma, and we every day she struggles with breathing. Right now,
Wow.
with myself being diagnosed with a brain tumor. Right
Wow.
now, with a daughter who travels the world. And some days I hold it together. And some days when I hear what's
Mm,
going on in the world, I tremble because I can't get to her. Right in the
right.
midst of whatever that those things are that I wish were different, but they're not going to change.
Mhm,
I have to embrace the suffering. With my asthmatic daughter, I have to say, God is out of my control.
mhm.
I've tried
Yeah.
everything. I've given her every herb we know. We tried all the magnets, Lord. She's on 25 medications,
Mm.
and it's
Wow.
still not better. And it's
Yeah.
still not better. So
Well,
am I
it's like Paul, he said, this is the thorn that God said he won't take away. And what am I going to do about it? I will rejoice.
I
I
will.
will find God is my strength
That's it.
when I.
Yes. And
Mhm.
so it's when you really it's kind of like we talk it. Let me say for myself, I talk it. But these are the situations that help me to realize maybe I don't believe it exactly. These are the
Mm,
situations that help me to say, Lord, I want to believe. Help my unbelief.
yes. So true. Right. And it's okay that we struggle with these things. I think a lot of times we think we see you I remember being a young homeschooler and I'd see these people who had homeschooled all these years and you put them on pedestals and you're like, wow, they've got it all together. No, we've just been drugged through a lot to get to this point and we've learned to submit because we couldn't get through any other way.
Yes. And that's why
And so,
these conversations are so good, because we're letting people know our stuff. We're letting them know, no, it's not always pretty. Yeah,
exactly.
I'm finished, but like I said, the tears, the hurt, the pain, the finger crossing, the
Mm,
wonder, the sleepless nights, those are all a part of the process.
they
And
are.
I would not be the Anita I am now, you know, uh, being diagnosed with a brain tumor, but waking up happy every morning because I know God has me. And
Yeah.
I will live as long as God says I will live. And the truth
Amen.
of the matter is, if we're really honest about it, we're all in that same boat.
Oh, yeah. our lives are where whatever number of days God has given us.
That's it.
And we just don't know. Are we living today in obedience? That's really the question, isn't it?
So I dare you out there, if you're thinking about, this homeschool thing keeps popping up, I just want you to know that you plus God is enough to get through it all.
Amen. So, so true. Yes. And it doesn't matter the ability, disability of your children and how many you have.
That's right.
Somehow it all does work together.
It really
And
does.
God will answer the prayers to bring people into your lives that you don't even know
Mm,
and to come alongside you. And they will be happy to because He's called
yes.
them to do that too.
Amen.
It's just amazing.
Yes.
The crazy story of meeting my neighbor who I didn't even know. Like you say, we don't know our neighbors. We moved into this house a year ago, and I went to an exercise class. I do aerial silks, and I had to find a new studio. And there was a mom in the class, and I told my husband, I said, there'll probably be a bunch of 20-year-olds. It wasn't. It was a bunch of 50-year-olds. I felt good because I'm almost 50. But we were talking after the class, and she's like, I've just been praying for someone to teach my son math. Do you know anybody? And I'm like, yeah, me. He lives 6 doors down and comes to math. But
Wow.
she has inflammation in her brain, and she can't homeschool her son herself. So God provides, and He provides a neighbor. You just do not know what God has already set aside for you.
Yes.
And we don't know till we just take that step in faith.
That's it.
It's just beautiful. And then you just got to give the glory back to Him because it's nothing you did.
That's right. That's right.
So true. Well, we've got just a couple minutes left, and I would just love to ask you, just share whatever is on your heart just to wrap up. I would just love for that, to give you that time to do that.
I would just say, we as parents are the greatest advocates our children will ever have. If we can see them not the way they are, but the way that God has created them to be, we will begin to speak that into them.
Yeah.
And they will become those things that we speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would encourage anyone out there who is, thinking about this homeschool thing, to first of all, just recognize that you're not alone, that from somebody who's almost 60, the most important thing you'll do right now as a mom is whatever you're doing with your children.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, I've never heard anybody on their deathbed say, I wish I had to work more.
Yeah.
Or I wish that it's always a regret that, I wish I had to listen to my heart.
Yeah.
I just really encourage you, if there's a tugging there's a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just praying even now that something we said tonight would help you just step over that line to know that God kept us. He kept Anita. He kept Peggy. He has no respecter of persons. If He can get us through it, us angry moms that we admitted we are, or we were.
We need to have a show just called that.
Angry moms. The angry moms of LA. If he could help us to raise children who are not totally crazy, who love God, who are positive people of society, who are making a difference, He can do it for you because He's no respecter of person.
Amen. Thank you so much, Anita. Can you talk a little bit about your book too? And then I'm going to share your website so people can.
Absolutely. So my book is called Starfinder. And it's discovering strategies to help your struggling student win. And that was because it was written for our daughter who was struggling. It was written because of her. But the
Mm.
principles, there's 12 principles in here that are actually things that will help bring unity. It's interesting that
That's
we're talking about this. Unify you and your child in your education. And there's also strategies in the book if your child is struggling, if they learn differently. It
mm,
gives you just ideas to help with that child.
that is always helpful because you kind of feel like you're beating your head against a wall sometimes when you're like, I think I
Yes.
tried it all, and yes,
One more thing. And so this book
so
is actually available on Amazon. If you put my name in, Anita Gibson, into the search, the Starfinder will pop up.
and your website is anitagibson.com.
Yes.
Definitely. And what can people find on there?
Oh, there are videos on there of me talking about various subjects. There are different kinds of, I also speak, so there are speaking topics there, and just various kinds of things that could help a homeschool mom.
Yeah. And then you also have another website, rastoday.org.
And that is an educational nonprofit that specifically creates homeschool learning centers and environments for to support parents who work or a parent
Mm,
who is struggling or may not be able to school their child. So we don't do all of the homeschool, but we create additional support for that parent. We also have an oversight program where we help you put your curriculums together. We're just here to help in any way that we can.
well, you're definitely using what you have learned over the years to bless others. And that's just a joy to see. And well, just a joy to have this conversation because it was definitely a blessing to me. And I'm hoping, and I'm pretty sure it was a blessing to our live viewers as well as those who will listen to this and watch it in the future on our recorded um, media sites. So thank you so much, Anita, just for your time, your
Sure.
wisdom, and all you've shared with us this evening. It's definitely blessed my heart.
Amen. Thank you so much. And thank you for what you're doing. You're
You're
making a
welcome.
huge difference. And the fact that you have just committed your life to this is, I just pray God's blessings on you in ways that you will be amazed that I'm asking Him for an open heaven for what you're doing and that the resources that you need, that all of them would be provided.
Thank you, Anita. I appreciate that. As we were talking before, I've been blessed with 3 new volunteers in the last 2 weeks, which is amazing,
Yes.
and a
Yes.
couple more that I'm talking through the next couple of days. God is just doing some incredible things in our ministry, and very excited about that. I do want to thank
Yes.
A Reason For also for sponsoring this broadcast. We love our sponsors. I'm so excited. Their sponsors already asking to sponsor shows in 2020, and
Wow.
so we're just really excited. But if you want to check out A Reason For Handwriting, definitely check out their website. And we just thank them for sponsoring this broadcast, and also for you just joining us. We have a lot of viewers that are joining us on a weekly basis, and we finished Family Dynamics. This is our last broadcast in this topic. Next month, we're going on to food and diets and allergies. And next week, we're going to be talking about combating picky eaters and limited diets. And so Chris and Claudia Diaz have a son, and they wrote a book, a children's book called Alejandro's Bacon Breakfast, because that's all their son would eat. And just
Wow.
the change in diet that he has gone through, and some of the things that they have done to help him to expand what he eats beyond bacon. If you have one of those picky eaters, you will definitely want to join us. But so we thought, with Christmas coming and all of those foods and food allergies, it's a really tough time of year for our families. And so we're going to really dive into that subject next month and hope that the resources we have for you will help. So, so thanks all for joining us. And SPED Homeschool is a nonprofit, so we do appreciate your help. Next Tuesday is actually Giving Tuesday, which on Facebook they are matching up to $7 million worth of donations that day. So we appreciate any donation made to our nonprofit. It is tax deductible, so you'll get a receipt directly from Facebook if you donate there. Otherwise, we do have a donate button on our website too. So that's enough for this broadcast, but we will see you again next Tuesday right here, same time. Or you can join us in our support group here on Facebook to keep this conversation going all week long. So bye, everybody. Again, thank you, Anita. It has just been a joy. It's going to be hard to say goodbye. So bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us.